Good morning. My name is Amy Wheeler, and I'm the host of the Yoga Therapy Hour. And today we're going to have a really amazing episode, if I do say so myself, with a big smile on my face. It's called Satyam and Ahiṃsā, telling the truth without harm. And, the reason I've decided to do this one, there's so many things when we go through the 8 limbs of yoga that we could choose. But the reason I chose to do this one is because it's something that I've worked on my whole life. And I think especially since I had tongue cancer, I did a lot of evaluation and analysis. Like, what does this mean? Is there a connection between my tongue cancer and between my speech or my eating and drinking and talking and swearing and gossiping? As a yoga therapist, sometimes we start looking at these models and trying to figure out what the connections are. And over the last many, many years of examining this, whether it's true or not, I don't know. It could just be a random thing, but I do feel my voice and my mouth, I feel like it's overused. So a little depleted, my 5th chakra, my Udana Vayu. Regardless, I do feel like I kind of overuse it and deplete it a lot. So there's something to be looked at there also. But in really looking at this, I've come to understand through self-reflection, I've come to understand when I'm speaking too much, when I'm not speaking enough, when I'm avoiding speaking my truth, even though I need to, but I don't want to, when and how it is that I say things that should not come out of my mouth. So it's just been a really interesting 4 years to look at this. And I hope that this episode can help you look at it also. Welcome. Whether this is your first time listening to the Yoga Therapy Hour, or you've been with us for an entire 3 years, we just want to say that we are ready to go deeper now. This year, we'll be studying the 8 limbs of yoga with a variety of guests. Today, we're going to do a solo episode with me. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so you all know that I am hoping that we start to not only learn some of the Sanskrit words, but say them correctly. As a community, I think it's important that we honor the tradition and philosophies of India and that we at least try. Of course, it's always embarrassing when you say it incorrectly, but we have to keep working on it. And I think one person you should check out, there's someone named Nikolai with an I, Bachman, has some beautiful recording tapes you can listen in your car where he'll say the word and you repeat it back. And that's how I learned a lot of it along with my teachers in India. But just to say, there's no reason we can't try to learn some of the words from this beautiful language. So the words of the day, I'll just go over them first so that as you hear them in the podcast, you'll remember, oh yeah, okay. Ahiṃsā. Non-harming in thought, word, and action. Most of you know this as the first yama. And I just want to say, this is not just the absence of violence. That's what a lot of people say, non-harming. But it's actually the cultivation of safety and steadiness and care and communication in a relationship. So when you hear Ahiṃsā means harm, Ahiṃsā means not harm, it's not just non-harming, it's actually caring for one another and taking care of one another in relationship. So then we go to the second yama, which is Satyam, which is mostly what we're talking about today. And this means truthfulness. And it's the alignment between our perception of the world, how we process that information and begin to integrate it and understand it. And then how do we take that perception and understanding and express it outward? So really, Satyam, it's a practice of coherence. And we can see when we're not in coherence because what we perceive, what we understand to be true, and what we express out doesn't match, and we get in a mess. And I would argue that most of us don't even know that we're doing this because we don't realize our perception is off. We don't realize we have avidyā, which is not enough information. We see parts of the puzzle, but we don't see the whole thing. So we have misinformation. We're lacking information. Therefore, our perception doesn't have the whole picture. And of course, our understanding is then off also because we didn't have the whole picture. I know we've all been in the situation where we think we know something and we're just hell-bent on it. Sorry to swear. And then all of a sudden we get one more piece of information. We're like, darn it, that changes everything. I'm so sorry I misunderstood. I didn't have that piece of information. Now my understanding is different. So of course, my expression of what I need to say would be different. So let's think about this, that if we're lacking coherence between our perception, our understanding, and expression, usually there's some information missing, or there's maybe a chip missing in us. Maybe there's something about us that we need to fix. And this is why they say that when people truly have Satyam, their perception is clear, their understanding is clear, and they can express it clearly, that the things that come out of their mouth actually manifest. And people jump in to help and be part of that team because they know there's truthfulness there. They know it's something they can count on. They know it's steady. They know it's safe. And they know there's care. And they know that we'll figure this out together. So I always really looked at that, like which people are able to bring people together and teams together and get things done. They have Satyam. Who is it that has a team that everything's breaking apart? Everyone's on a different page. They probably don't have Satyam. And so we learn over time. If you're one of those people that can't get a project to go through with your team, you kind of learn, oh, maybe I'm the common denominator. And I'm going to laugh about that one because I've had that. I for sure have had that. So anyway, Satyam, truthfulness, alignment between perception, understanding, and expression. And it's a practice of coherence within yourself, really. And then later, we're going to talk about rhythm. Some of you know Satyam and rhythm are like the two wings of the bird. And rhythm is the cosmic order, the inherent intelligence of the universe. So the cosmic order or the inherent intelligence in the universe. So the deeper that you get into being part of the cosmic flow, the deeper you get into being part of that inherent intelligence of the universe, the more likely your reality will line up with the reality. And you will see that the truth kind of exists beyond your personal perspective, beyond your needs and your timing and your context, that you will start to see the world from multiple perspectives. Many different people have different perspectives. You'll start to get more patient with the timing of the universe. You'll start to just do your best. You'll put 100% out and then you'll leave it and you'll be like, universe, do as you like with my efforts. And sometimes the universe responds and it goes in the direction you were hoping. And sometimes the universe is like, no, you get to wait a little while, or no, thank you. Don't like your efforts. So as we learn to live in this, and I'm just laughing because this is my life in a nutshell. But as we learn to live in this cosmic soup, knowing we're just this tiny little particle that's doing our best, but sometimes way off base, as we just float and give effort and try to do right action and try to put goodness in the world, but also knowing that it's so much bigger than us and there's really not much that we have control over. In that sense, we let go of a lot of ego. We let go of control. We let go of it having to be my way, in my timing. And we get more in alignment with the cosmic inherent intelligence of the universe. And we just start to say, I'm giving effort. I'm doing my best, however flawed that might be. But I'm also giving it up to something higher than myself. And when we do that, we become the observer of our lives, the witness. And then that is so cool because our Satyam, our coherence becomes stronger. Our perception becomes more clear, our understanding more full, our expression more correct. So Ritam and Satyam are the two wings of the bird, because in order for each of us to have truthfulness within our own body, mind, and heart, we actually have to have this Ritam, this ability to kind of let go of your own will and your own agenda and your own timeline, and to be the observer of your life and the universe. So those are the three words of the day that you'll hear today: Ahiṃsā, Satyam, and Ritam. And now let's just jump in and talk about this amazing topic. I feel kind of happy with these solo episodes because I feel like I'm getting to do a little teaching. Some of you know that I've been a university professor for 30 years and I love teaching and I love yoga. So these are two of the things that I get to do together when I do a solo episode. All right, so let's begin by orienting you, our audience, to the role of the yamas in Patanjali's Yoga Sutra. So you've all heard of the 8 limbs of yoga. The yamas they're not moral rules imposed from the outside. It's not like the 10 commandments that God put up on the mountaintop. It's not like that. These yamas are relational disciplines that help stabilize you and your own system, as I was just talking about, building coherence between your perception, your understanding, and your self-expression. So they stabilize you. You know, Patanjali's Yoga Sutra says, work on yourself. There's a whole lot of stuff going on out there. There's a lot of unfairness. There's a lot of lack of justice. There is systemic and structural horrible things out there. And we're seeing all that right now. It's just so apparent. But Patanjali is a book about how you can help you in spite of all of that. And how can you work within yourself to stay regulated in body, mind, spirit, and nervous system in spite of all of that, so that you can, it is assumed, go out and do your best work. That if you get yourself in order, you will show up differently in the world and the world will benefit. So the yamas are not moral rules implied from the outside, but they're part of a way for you to stabilize your human system internally first and then socially. And some people always ask, why are the yamas before the niyamas? Why are the social disciplines before the personal disciplines? Wouldn't you want to get yourself in order so then you could be correct socially? No. Patanjali starts with the yamas. He starts with the social because he says that tapas that you're going to get between you and other people is going to be fodder for reflection. That, you know, it's only through our social interactions and our failings that we can come back and be like, oh, here's where I didn't have clarity. Here's where my perception is off. Here's where I'm not having coherence in my speech. So it's through the relationship with the other. Isn't that beautiful? That it's assumed from the first limb of yoga that you will be interacting with others, and that's the whole point. That is the framework, is that you are in relationship at the beginning, full stop. Starting with your relationship with your mother while you're in her womb, as you are birthed out of the birth canal, as you come into being. You are one with that other human before there's divide and you individuate as a human being separate from your mother. So even that shows you that we are relational beings, and that the first part of discovering who we are is seeing that we are one before we are divided. We are non-dual before we are dual, right? So when we look at the yamas as ways to stabilize our human system internally, but also knowing that that only happens through the interaction with others externally to get the feedback to know what happened and where we lack clarity, through that you can see that the tone of the yamas is not about being right, and it's not about being nice. Those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum. I'm right. I know. I've got this covered. Or I'm a people pleaser. I don't know anything. I'll just defer to you and just try to be nice. Neither one of those is going to provide coherence within you or within your relationships. What these yamas are really about is alignment between you, yourself, your perception, your speech, your action, and then how does that influence the other? And there's a feedback loop. So it's about alignment and using our relationships, as TKV Deskachar says, yoga is relationship. It's about using our relationships to feedback and work on ourselves. But most of us don't do that. Most of us are blaming and shaming and angry and thinking everybody else is wrong and we're perfect. So what do you know? That's the first part of being human. I'm laughing and smiling a lot today because I think it's funny. I think we take ourselves far too seriously. I think we try to be perfect. I think we try to appear perfect. And I want us to get a little silly about this and be like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess. I have stuff to work on. I am imperfect. And then you have to ask yourself, will people love you in your imperfection? Yes, the right people will love you and they'll laugh with you. And you can just be ridiculously messy together and tell each other the truth. I think that's when you know you've really arrived as a yogi, is you have the people around you that love you, support you, but they'll also be like, honey, child, you are off base. You are ridiculous. You have stepped in it. I have my dad, he's 85, and I talk to him every night and I tell him about my day, and he knows all the people in my life. So if you're out there listening and you're a regular part of my life, my dad knows you. And he just says it like he is. You know how 85-year-old men no longer have a filter? Well, he just tells me, and I know he loves me, so sometimes it hurts, but I actually know he's got my highest good in mind. And so when he says, Amy, you need to step back, or Amy, you're being controlling, or Amy, you're not doing things right, like I listen. I literally listen. And that's the yamas in action. So, all right. So let's get deeper into Satyam now. The yamas, there's 5 of them. We're not covering the other ones today, but we're talking mainly about the second one, Satyam. And a lot of people think it's like a very simplistic thing, like I'm going to tell the truth. But really, what Satyam is, it's an alignment between what we perceive, what we understand, and what we express. As I said, building that inner coherence with feedback from the outer to tell us when our coherence is off. And this is so difficult because if we're hanging out with the wrong people who are not honest, not kind, not having the community involved, not having the highest good for all of us involved, the external feedback we get is actually messed up. They're telling us the wrong things, and the incoherence keeps going and going and going. So I guess before Satyam, you have to get some people on your team that are good, solid human beings that tell the truth, that are goodness in action, that are very communally oriented. So we have to look at the feedback we're getting, and is it correct? I have one friend that I'm just on her team. No matter what she says, I'm like, girl, you're right. He's wrong. I love you. Don't listen to that. He's not being correct with you. I had to look at myself because that's not Satyam. I was a cheerleader, but I was not having Satyam. On the other hand, I could say to her, get rid of him. You don't need that. You're better than that. He's not treating you right. I want to see you break up with him by Friday, right? That could be more controlling. That's not Satyam. So Satyam is this place where we say, I love you. I'm with you. Here's some things that I'm seeing that maybe you weren't aware of, you might want to reflect upon. And we have to have people who are willing to do that for us and vice versa. So when we do this over time within ourselves and within our relationship, pretty soon, more of the one truth with a capital T starts to emerge. Truth in perception, truth in understanding, truth in action, truth in speech. And what happens? The outcomes align. It actually works. Things manifest that you go for it. They actually happen because all of the dominoes came right in alignment. So when we look at this from maybe being a yoga therapist or a yoga teacher, kind of in a more clinical or therapeutic space, I would say that Satyam is not blunt disclosure. It's not like telling somebody like, hey, you got some problems and let me tell you what they are. Obviously, we're not doing that. We'll leave that for someone else. But it's more about showing up regulated so that there can be some co-regulation, being attuned to the person in front of us, and helping them to get more regulated and attuned to themselves, and just reflecting back to them what they're saying. A lot of times when things come out of their mouth, that's the first time they've heard it. That's the first time they've allowed themselves to actually say what's going on in their head. And just reflecting it back to them, they go off into their day and go for a walk later. Did I really say that to my psychologist or my yoga therapist? Right? You don't actually have to tell anybody what to do. You can just reflect back and be empathetic and be kind and show up regulated and attuned. And so, in a nutshell, you might say as a yoga therapist or a yoga teacher that part of having us all look at what is truth and truthfulness requires regulation. And that without regulation, we're probably not going to have the ability, the courage, the clarity to look at truth and to be with what is. For most of us, we have to hit rock bottom. We have to keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over until finally we're like, I can't do this anymore. This is too painful, right? But as yogis, we also have the opportunity to catch it earlier before it's so terribly, terribly painful. Let's take just a little pause here to talk about our Ayurveda Practitioner Certificate at Notre Dame of Maryland School of Integrative Health. This Ayurvedic certificate program is 4 classes. It's 12 credits. It is an accredited university with federal financial aid available. We also accept the GI Bill. We would love for you to come on over and get a little bit of Ayurvedic expertise, especially if you're already a yoga teacher or a yoga therapist. If you'd like more information about our Ayurvedic certificate program, we do have open houses at Notre Dame of Maryland once a month, or you can email me and I can send you all the information. We hope you'll consider joining us for the Ayurvedic certificate program. All right, let's get back to the episode. All right, so kind of got an idea about Satyam. If I were to put it in a nutshell, I would just say you're trying to find coherence within yourself so that what comes out of your mouth is coherent. We do that in relationship with other people, loving, kind, supportive people that are also willing to tell us the truth. As we go to the second segment, we can say that Satyam, the second yama, rests inside, it's nested inside of the first one, Ahiṃsā. So Ahiṃsā is, as we said, it's not just nonviolence. It's not just non-harming. It's actually more than that. It's actually doing good, being kind, being compassionate. And so if we look at that Satyam is resting inside Ahiṃsā, now we have to look at Ahiṃsā as the container for all of the other yamas. All of the other yamas are nested inside this Ahiṃsā container. And by the way, we're talking about Yoga Sutra 235 at this point. So this is why Ahiṃsā is listed first, because every other yama ties back into how can we take care of one another, be safe together, not harm each other. So if Satya or Satyam is governed by Ahiṃsā, what we really have to look at is both sides of the coin now. What am I doing that causes unnecessary harm, right? But also, what truth am I avoiding that is causing harm and therefore is making the picture incomplete? What am I omitting? What am I hiding so that people are confused and, things just don't add up? Everybody's wondering, well, we don't have all the information. I don't know what this means. What's going on, right? So looking at what are you saying that's causing harm, but what are you also saying that's omitting harm? So there's this real dynamic tension. How do you talk and make sure that you're not being harsh and reactive, but how do you also look at where am I avoiding hard conversations and where am I being inauthentic? I think the reason we avoid conversations and we are inauthentic is because we're scared. We're scared of what happens if we say the truth as we see it. Will they not love us? Will they throw us to the curb? Will a fight break out? Will all the cards in the house fall down? I don't know, right? So I would say if there's one thing that I've seen over many, many years professionally and personally that has caused a lot of harm, it's people being unwilling to speak their truth and to say what's real for them and risk being wrong, learning more information that we didn't know. So this is really the balance with Satyam is how can I not make too many assumptions and need to be right, and therefore I'm harsh and reactive, but how can I also not walk around in the world with lies of omission and not saying who I really am and what I feel and what I need? That isn't going to work either. So again, if we look at this from kind of a clinical perspective, as a yoga therapist, we might ask the person in front of us, is that true for you? Can you reflect on if what you're saying is actually true? Is that who you are? Is that your authentic self? Is that your highest self? Are there any other possibilities that might be more in alignment with your true nature? And we're not telling them the answers. We're not saying you need to think about this. We're asking them, maybe even setting up a yoga nidra about who am I? I remember one of my very first yoga teacher trainings. We had 30-minute meditation, and I was so confused at the time, but now it's just such a beautiful memory, in Shavasana with lots of bolsters and pillows and blankets. And there was a nice humming of Om in the background. And the whole meditation was softly the words, who am I? Who am I? So every 30 seconds or so, you'd get a who am I? And we just laid there and thought about that. So that helps us to be more authentic, to be more true, to be honest with ourselves. We can't be honest with anyone else if we're not honest with ourselves. So that, idea of figuring out who you are and what you need and what you stand for and how you can express that in the world is really, really deep work around Ahiṃsā, because then we show up in our relationships more honest and people don't have to be so confused. Now, if we look at all of this from a nervous system lens, we can kind of bridge these ancient teachings of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra with this modern framework without losing the philosophical roots. That's the key, right? But we can look at it that when we're in sympathetic nervous system dominance, fight, flight, we can become very sharp and defensive and just say what we really think. And that can harm. I mean, a relationship that you've had for many, many, many years can be completely destroyed because now they know what you really think, or now they've heard you at your worst. Maybe you don't really think that, but maybe just because you were just feeling so angry that came out of your mouth. But it's so amazing to me how one conversation can destroy the trust of many, many years of goodness. And then we have to be willing to come back and talk about it. Another kind of nervous system flare on this is sometimes the truth, our truth, becomes suppressed or avoided because it wasn't safe for us to speak the truth in our family of origin or at work. And so we think my truth doesn't matter. Nobody's going to listen to me. Or maybe we tiptoe around the truth, trying not to hurt anyone, but then it's so subtle that they don't even know what you were trying to say. Or maybe we just shut down and say, I can't do this. You got to figure it out on your own. I'm not here to help you. There's many different ways we can have this kind of withdrawal to protect ourselves, to, maybe protect the other, but there's a suppression there. And that can cause a lot of problems because, as we said, it all goes back to avidyā, which means we're trying to get all the pieces and all the parts of information. So if some people are holding back and not giving their information, others are taking over and giving all the information, we are missing that balance within our community. And, I think what makes it hard, another thing is sometimes there's very, very talkative people that want to share and share and share and share irrelevant things, things that are off topic, very personal things. So I'm not saying we can't have some boundaries and rein people in and say, hey, for this time and place, here's the topics we need to talk about for the next hour. There needs to be a leader that can do that, but also being aware that if things are on topic, And if they're pertinent to the group, let's gather as much information as we can so that we all have clarity. So with this in mind, when we really are starting to look at nervous system regulation and our ability to speak our truth, we are looking at interoceptive awareness. How is my body feeling? Am I contracting? Is my heart space contracting? Am I breathing really shallowly? Am I starting to sweat? Those are all signs that something is going on where there's not coherence between the information you're taking in, your perception, your understanding, your expression. Like if you start to have that interoceptive awareness of all these crazy changes in your body, those are times to kind of look and say, okay, what's going on? Or maybe stomach aches or maybe migraines, that kind of thing. Those are all signals from our body. So the truth, it's not just cognitive. It's not just in your brain. It's actually physiological. And then, as we've been saying all day, the truth is relational, right? So, so much to say about Satyam. All right. So now let's move into another segment, rhythm. And I brought this up at the beginning for a reason. Rhythm is the cosmic order. Some people would say the underlying intelligence that governs reality with a capital R. So that means there is truth out there, but each one of us is looking at it through our little prism, through our little colored glasses, so we don't see the truth. But there is a truth out there, and it's called rhythm. And so we're kind of looking at this difference between what is my truth, what is the inherent truth with a capital T. And anytime there is a mix-up between your truth and the truth, you are going to suffer. I'm going to suffer. So one way we could frame that or look at that is to say, rhythm is what is. Satyam is how you align with the capital T truth. And then how do you communicate what is? So is there coherence between your idea of truth and the inherent truth of the universe? And recognizing when you're in alignment and recognizing when you're out of alignment. So again, we can look at the really hard times we've had in our life when things didn't work out, where everything fell apart, where maybe we figured out we were missing information or we were lied to, or there was someone intentionally omitting or withholding information. All of this helps us to get rid of the confusion and get clarity to say, I couldn't be in alignment with the truth of the universe during that time because of XYZ. And I'm not going to allow myself to get in that situation if I can help it. So one more important distinction is that sometimes we can speak something that's factually correct, but it's misaligned with the universal truth because of timing, because of context, because of relationship. So, even though we may be speaking truth, maybe nobody's listening to us because they're focused over here, or the timing is off. You say something at the wrong time, or the context. You say it in this context and it needed to be said in that context. I always say, compliment publicly and critique privately, unless you need to bring that to the next level. And maybe to not have harm, you do need to eventually critique publicly. But that's an upgrade. That's only after you've tried it several times privately. So just to say that sometimes when you speak your truth, the timing might be off, the context might be off, and the relationship might be off. You might be saying it to the wrong person. All right, so let's bring all of this together. Ahiṃsā is not just non-harming, but it's actually connection, stability, kindness, compassion, taking care of one another. Satyam is how we find the internal coherence so that we can align with the universal intelligence, the universal order of things as they are. And we can speak to others in a way that expresses both the universal intelligence and organization, but also our own internal coherence. And we do that, obviously, speaking with Ahiṃsā. We don't get reactive, but we also don't omit things either, and we don't repress. And so you could ask yourself, an internal inquiry is, you could ask yourself, is it true? That's Satyam. Is it kind? That's Ahiṃsā. Is it the right time and context? That is Ritam. Is it true? Satyam. Is it kind? Ahiṃsā. Is it the right time, context? And I would even add the right relationship, Ritam. So I think we are complete for the day. I've given you so much to reflect upon, and just to give us all a little bit of grace. This is a lifelong learning. We are not going to master this through some cognitive exercise that we do. I think I've been learning this since 7th grade in band class. I won't tell you that story, but I'll just say I may or may not have been truthful with my band director. Like, this is a long-term thing, and it's very deep because it requires us to have surrender to the universal intelligence. It requires us to build trust within the universal intelligence, but also trust within ourselves. It requires us to work through our fears of abandonment and rejection, and the fear around, can I be my authentic self and be loved? You know, if you do all that work, you will have Satyam. But that's why it's a lifetime, because those are the things that we're really working on as human beings. So, all right, everyone, have a great day. It's been so lovely to be with you. Please know that if you would like to support the podcast, you can become a Patreon member, $5 a month. You can become an Optimal State mobile app member, both for iPhone and for Android. We are adding amazing content all the time to our app. Lots of meditations, both top down as well as bottom up. And you can think about buying the book that Marlisa Sullivan and I have written called Applications of Therapeutic Yoga in Integrative Health. And that is coming out on August 10th, but it's already available on Amazon.com for pre-sale. Thanks so much for listening. We love having you here, and we'll see you next week. We wish you a wonderful week. We hope that somehow, in a small way, we've contributed to your well-being so that you can go out and share that well-being with others. That's what life is all about, bringing in the goodness through you and then shining it out to the world. We need you more than ever. So let's all get out there, do good, be good, and have a great week.